I've come to the Foster Hill Road Cemetery, about 1 mile outside the town centre of Bedford. Up at the top of the slope we can see the Chapel of Rest. A simple, large block of polished granite. And this is William Gaisley, 1816 to 1890. Sarah, his wife. Underneath we have the words wife, husband. Very nicely decorated at the top. Janet, the dearly loved wife of Daniel Clark, who peacefully fell asleep. 1901, age 71. Daniel Clark, 1909, age 90. This one's falling forward at a crazy angle. It won't be here much longer. Kate Mason, 63 years, a dear wife and mother, 1926. And then our dear father, Joseph Mason, 1940 something. Quite so easy to read the inscription, but it's James Thomas Hobson, Alderman of Bedford, and 3 times Mayor. Nearby is George Setchell, born 1829, died 1899, for 28 years Superintendent of the Corporation Baths. Those were the days when corporation baths were very important, because people didn't necessarily have good washing facilities in their homes. So the corporation baths were somewhere they came once a week to make themselves a bit cleaner and fresher. This one behind the old iron railings and up on a stone plinth would have been very grand in its day. It now needs some renovation. I think it's lost a bit from the top. And it's Sarah, widow of the late Reverend John Jukes. And the inscription on the other side is very faded, and I think that's John Jukes himself. Close by, lying on its side on the grass, I see this large obelisk, which I think is the missing bit from the Duke statue. A nice sculpture of a lady gazing into the distance with her hands resting on the top of an anchor. And if we look at the base of the monument, John Charles Denton, 1843, 1895. I do like an unusual surname. So we've got George Whitty, the husband of Bessie Whitty Whitty. And at the bottom we've got Chrissy Willie, son of the above, so presumably Chrissy Willie Whitty. What a lovely combination of names. And just behind that stone we've got Robert Giggle, 1911, aged 65 years, and Jane Giggle, 1831 to 1912. A very nice angel here, and she's complete with both her hands. They so often lose their hands over the years. And unusually for angels, she's showing both her feet at the bottom. The inscription at the bottom is Lucy Mary, son of Charles Harris. Another nice depiction with a very soulful looking young lady carrying flowers in her hands. On the base we can see Mervyn, interesting spelling of Mervyn, Besford or Besford, who died in 1911 on his 3rd birthday. A surname we don't see very often, Arthur Edwin Elderkin, 1936, age 65. and then Laura Elderkin, his wife, and then Leo, their younger son. Sophia Blackall Parker, wife of Lieutenant Colonel George M.G. Parker, who passed on to a higher understanding, 1930. No mention of the Lieutenant Colonel himself being buried here, just really lists his wife as being in the grave. A really heavy cross and something a little different, although sadly it is collapsing down the slope of the graveyard. Suspect won't be upright for many more years. And it's to the dear memory of Lettice Barbara Hay, beloved youngest child, died 1904. Andrew Richardson, 42 years, Principal Officer of HM Customs, died 1903, aged 81. Squeezed in amongst the family memorials is a war grave. Private B.H. Brown, 78th Battalion of the Canadian Infantry, 1917, aged 43. This one appears to be the two brothers who died in the First War. Private George Fensom, 3rd Beds Regiment, 6th of June 1918, aged 29. And Private Fred Fensom, Military Medal, Royal Army Medical Corps, who died of wounds in France, 1916, aged 23. This is a new one for me. Nurse A.E. Dawes, O.A., Imperial Military Nursing Service, 1918. I don't know what the O.A. is at the front. Now this is a little unusual. We have a young girl with her hair tied back. Her dress is not full length like so many of them, just below her knee. On our right arm she has a pot, maybe a flask of water. On the memorial we have Alfred William Wood, 1868 to 1949, Edith Marion, and we have other inscriptions on other faces. As I work my way further into the graveyard, I can see it extends even further than we first thought. A pair of less common first names on this stone. Towers Linford Crawley, the husband of Hepzibah Crawley. Died on Sunday, December the 17th, 1905, aged 31. And a really great name on here. It sounds to me like something out of a Harry Potter or something similar. Horatio Dumbleton. Horatio Dumbleton, son of the late Henry Dumbleton of Thornhill Park, Southampton. There's an area which has been fenced off with metal railings with a number of tombs within it, but I can't see any common factor on surnames. A bit further in we have this garden of remembrance with the small stones. These will be people that have been cremated or possibly buried elsewhere, and just a small stone to remember them by. Just a couple taken at random. Lieutenant Colonel W.N. Pettigrew and his wife, 1964. Behind we have Ruby Ivy Windsor, 1965. If I go across to one with flowers in front, Brian Arthur Nichols, 1964. I will leave you to interpret this one. It's 1907 to 1959. But beyond that, I'm not going to try and read it. This celebrates a Polish gentleman, and there is some of the inscription in English. If I can close in on that. Soldier of the Polish Underground Army, participant in the Rising of Warsaw 1944, taken prisoner of war to Germany after liberation, served in the Polish Women's Auxiliary Forces in England. So I've done her a disfavour. It's a lady, Danuta. As I move further into the graveyard, more and more graves come into view. In this area I can see quite a number of Commonwealth war graves. But I also noticed a little further down the hill on the right is a large group of them. So we'll wander down there and have a look at that. Now, this is the area I glimpsed earlier, and the board tells me there's some 215 war graves recorded in this cemetery. So a particularly large area here around the monument, but they're also scattered amongst the others. As I pan round, you can start picking other war graves out. I can't possibly try and show you all 215 of these. I'll just walk along and pick out 2 or 3 that catch my eye. I am noticing a number of Scottish men here. This is erected by his comrades, Corporal Ewan Andrew McColl, who died at Bedford, of the 8th Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. And if I move to the right, we've got P.J. McKinnon of the Cameroon Highlanders. This one to Private P. Murray of the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders, 1915. And this one to Private W. Beveridge of the Gordon Highlanders, 1914, age 19. And just to even it up a bit, Private J. O'Neill of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. This commemorates Ken Sidney of the Beds and Herts Regiment, the local regiment, the only son of Sidney and Nita Bartram, who was accidentally killed 1941, aged 18. And at the front of this area are 3 to men from the Polish forces. This stands out because of the care and attention that it's still receiving. And yet the name on here is Violet Smith, 1960, aged 44. So it's 60 years since she died, and her children are still looking after this grave. This is one of the newer parts of the graveyard. It's really mostly infilling between older graves. A lot of them have images of the person concerned on the stone, but very few have images apart from that. And sometimes the images of what they're interested in tells you a lot more about them than a portrait. My eye was caught by the back of this stone, which has these 3 images. I think the right hand one is a riding crop, then a basket with some flowers, but I don't know what this is meant to be on the top left hand corner. I thought first of all maybe a piano, possibly a pinball machine. We learn on the other side that it's to Edward Biddle and Louisa Biddle, and there is a photograph at the top there, but I'm afraid it's faded over the years and it's difficult to see what they're actually doing. Maybe sat having a picnic or something. And down here at the foot of the stone, badly faded, is a horse pulling a caravan. Eliza Slade, 1917, aged 70 years. And then her son, Sergeant Charles Harold Slade, who was killed in action in France, April the 26th, 1917, aged 29. So he died just 6 weeks before his mother. And one can only assume that his death hastened hers. Partway down, we read about Signaller R.M. Sharratt, 11th Battalion of the Middlesex Regiment, killed in action at the Battle of Arras, 1917. Well, he will be buried out there. It was not the policy to bring home the bodies of those that died, whether they were officers or men. They were buried in graveyards where they fell. But he's remembered here on his grandfather's gravestone. Well, one can't miss the name on this one. In very large and clear letters, Annette Sparks, 1833, 1894, St Agnes School, Bedford. Ellen, widow of the Reverend Jarvis D. Valentine, born at Bedford, 1836, and was for 30 years CEMS missionary in China. I guess that's Church of England Missionary Society. He died at Shanhung, China, 1889, and she died back here in 1904. This one with a very matter-of-fact declaration. Thomas Cope, who went home, 1904. And then his wife, who fell asleep. And here we have a wall of remembrance. This wall right up the hill is covered with plaques remembering those that have gone. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my visit to the cemetery in Bedford. It's not been an easy one to video because the sun has been coming right in behind the inscriptions rather than on the inscriptions. Hopefully you've got some images that you can enjoy. I've enjoyed my visit here. So do take time out and come to the cemetery in Bedford. Till the next time.